What do you do when you have a holiday?
Well, mostly when I have a holiday, I use it for sleeping and play sports with my friends.
Where do you like to spend your holidays?
Well, I like to spend my holidays at home for most of the time because I like sleeping till like 2 p.m. and afterwards I will play computer games with my friends or play sports in the sports center with my friends.
Can you describe a typical day in your holiday?
Well, a typical day would be me waking up at 1 p.m., then have lunch at home, and then turn on the computer to see if the friends are online and play computer games with them. And then maybe about 4 to 5 p.m. in the afternoon, I will go out and play badminton with my friends. And at night, maybe just go home and help cook the dinner. Yeah.
Why are holidays important to you?
Well, holidays are important to me, especially those with a theme like the Chinese Lunar New Year, which is kind of my main income from the web pockets, and some other holidays like somehow other holidays give me a chance to take a break from the exhausting schedule of university.
If you could take a holiday anywhere in the world, where would you like to go?
Well, if I have a holiday, I would like to go to Taiwan because the place is beautiful, and more importantly, I can speak Mandarin and I can read their languages. So it is easier for me and my friends to visit such a place so that we don't worry about ourselves. And it is beautiful, really, yeah.
Now, let's go on to places to go in your free time. What do people in your town do in their free time?
Well, mostly the people in my town go to malls and do shopping in their free time because they don't have that time when they're working, and there are always promotion sales in holidays. So sometimes even I and my family go visit the malls in holiday. Yeah.
Where can they go for entertainment?
Well, there are always cinema in the mall, so that after or before the shopping, they could watch a movie first, and then grab a bite in the mall, and then do shopping or buy dinner, and they may end the day with just being in the mall. Yeah.
What do you prefer? Eating in restaurants or eating at home?
Well, for me, I don't like cooking, and my cooking is bad, so that I prefer eating outside rather than eating at home. And it is not that expensive eating in a restaurant in Hong Kong, so I would prefer eating outside.
Can I check your identification?
Of course.
That's fine, thank you.
Cool.
Now, in this first part, I'd like to ask you some more questions about yourself, okay?
Okay.
Do you work or study?
I study.
Where are you studying?
I'm currently studying in the Hong Kong Polytechnic University.
What do you hope to do after finishing your course?
Well, I hope that after finishing my course, I will become a civil servant as an immigration officer.
What are your ambitions for the future?
Well, I hope that when I become a civil servant, I will be able to serve the public by stationing in the immigration counters to ensure that there will be no dangerous people from coming into Hong Kong, like terrorists, and protect the safety of Hong Kong.
What are the advantages of studying instead of working?
Well, I think the best thing about studying over working is that studying gives you, like when you study in university, you get 4 more years to think about how to plan your life and what do you want to do, rather than hastily going to work and like you work for the rest of life until your retirement. So that would be it could be miserable if you don't continue your studying after secondary school.
Now, let's talk about sports. What sports are most popular in your country?
Well, I think that the most popular sports in my country is soccer, because we Hong Kongers like to watch football after we've end our work life, and more importantly, soccer is a game that is popular in Hong Kong because there are many amateurs football players, and even ranged from like 15 years old to 60 years old. And it is sports where like half of the male would like to play, and when they after their training or their competition, they could hang out and have late dinner together.
What sports did you most enjoy playing when you were a child?
Well, I think that the most enjoyable sports when I was a child, I would say it is badminton, because badminton has provided me with a lot of memories, including those where I play badminton with my father, and it brings out some memory of family life, and more importantly, I get the only sports medal from participating in the school's badminton team and won a team medal. So that is quite memorable.
Do people take as much exercise as they did in the past?
Well, I say that nowadays people actually, I think they do more exercise than than the people used to be, because nowadays, although the people nowadays do not go out for exercise, maybe not as much as in the old times. Maybe they don't go playing badminton or play table tennis so often, but they go to gym room, which is, I say, a more intense exercise than in the old times.
Why is exercise good for you?
Well, for start, I think exercise is good for our health, as it trains our cardiorespiratory strengths, and also it provides us with a training exercise for muscular strength, so that in both ways it facilitates our body's, it enhances our body's strength for intense work. Yeah.
Now, let's go on to shopping. How much time do you spend on shopping every week?
Well, I say that if include internet shopping, I would say about 5 to 6 hours per week. And I think online shopping is a very convenient tool, as I don't need to go outside, and I can just stay at home, and while browsing through the internet shopping sites, I can perform multitasking.
Can I check your identification?
Of course.
That's fine, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, in this first part, I'd like to ask you some more questions about yourself, okay? Can you describe the area where you live to me?
Well, I live in Hong Kong, to be specific in Tsuen Wan, which is a residential district with little commercial elements in it, and it is quite a nice community to live in.
What jobs do people in your town do?
Well, mostly people in my town are teachers, lawyers, and doctors.
How has your town or city changed over the last 20 years?
Well, to say that my town has redeveloped a lot, and many old buildings were torn down, and I was kind of sad about it, because I lived in my district like for my entire life, But there are some great features about the new buildings, like the new malls and new shops, new places to hang with my friends. So there are benefits and some disadvantages. Yeah.
Do you think it is better to live in the center of town or outside in the country?
Well, I believe that living inside the town is much better than living in the countryside because it gets more convenient to travel to different places around the city, and living in countryside often have some undesirable pests. So I don't like pests so much. So I like to prefer staying in the city.
Now, let's go on to reading. Do you enjoy reading?
Well, I enjoy reading and I read a lot of books, especially those fictions, because I find that when I'm reading, I can immerse myself into a different world and I can really dump away all those troubles in my real life.
What sort of things do you like to read?
Well, I like reading fictions as it provides you with a completely new world, especially those science fiction novels, which gives you a chance to flow through the space and to explore the universe and something like that. Yeah.
Tell me something about your favorite book.
Well, my favorite book is actually not a science fiction novel. It is a kind of a political novel. It is the 1984 by George Orwell, and it is quite shocking after I read it about how a regime can monitor the people. And what's more shocking is that many governments, even those governments who claim to be free, also uses such method to control the people, so that the horror it depicts in the novel is kind of reflected in the real society nowadays. So it really influences me the most. Yeah.
What are the advantages of reading instead of watching television or going to the cinema?
Well, I think the major advantage of books over movie and TV shows is that it gives you the space to imagine, as both TV and films would limit your imagination by showing the images the director wants you to see. But when a writer creates a world with his or her words, you can imagine according to his or her words, and also adding to your own personal experience. So I think this is the magnificent point of reading books.
Now, let's talk about transport. How did you come here today?
Well, I came here today by MTR.
What is public transport like in your town?
Well, the major public transport in my country is the railway, the underground railway, and also buses, and they are quite convenient, unlike most countries, because Hong Kong is a small city, but the traffic demand is high, so they often have a tight schedule, so it won't take long for people to wait for the transportation.
Okay. Now I'm going to give you a topic, and I'd like you to talk about this for 1 to 2 minutes. You will have 1 minute to prepare. Do you understand? Yes. Here is a pencil and paper for writing notes. And here is your topic. Please do not write anything on the topic paper. I'd like you to talk about an exciting experience. All right. Remember, you have 1 to 2 minutes for this. So don't worry if I stop you. I will tell you when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
So I would say the most exciting experience in my life was last summer when I had my graduation trip in Taiwan. And what happened exactly is that I rent a bike in the city in Taiwan from the hotel, and I was planning to watch the sunset in the coastline. And after I left, when I left the park, it was already and it was already night, so everything was dark. And as I was riding a bike, so I have to use the road with heavy traffics, and there are a lot of motorbikes in Taiwan, so I accidentally crashed into one of the motorbikes and I got slightly injured. But then I was received by a house owner nearby, and he invited me into his house, and he treated me well. But when I want to get back to the hotel, I found out that I forgot my way, and I even forgot the name of the hotel. So I don't know what to do. I was desperate by then, but the house owner was great enough to ask around to call each hotel and to find out whether my friend is in the hotel or not. And by some miracle, he found where my hotel is, and he personally drove me back to the hotel.
Thank you. Would you like to do this again?
Well, I don't think that I would like to crash my bike again, especially it's not mine, I rented. And but if anything bad things ever happen again, I would be happy to be received by such hospitable person, and that was quite an exciting and unforgettable experience.
Thank you. Can I take the paper and pencil back, please? Thank you. We've been talking about an exciting experience in your life. Now, I'd like to discuss with you one or two more general questions relating to this topic. First, let's consider taking risks. What risks should people try to avoid?
Well, I think that those risks which would endanger lives should be avoided, like the new sports currently, the parkour, which some may play normally in parks using park benches or short walls to play parkour, but some people may be too dangerous and they play on the rooftops and they took selfies on the rooftop, which is quite a dangerous thing, considering that not only you will fall off the building and die, you could also injure someone who is walking below on the streets. So it is important for you to consider your own safety as well as others' safety in carrying dangerous actions. Yeah.
So do you think the government should set up some legislations to prevent people from taking such risks?
Well, I think that is quite hard for the government to set up a legislation to forbid people from committing dangerous acts, because everyone has their rights to do whatever they want as long as it is not doing harms to others, but they can do things to harm themselves, and they could say this is their human right and you can't violate it.
Do you think people take fewer risks as they grow older?
Well, I believe that is right, because as a person gets older, he or she knows more about the world, and maybe they have a lot more attachment, like to attach to their partners, to their families, to their children, and they have too much responsibility in their hand. They can't take risks no more, so they will tend to be more conservative when they get older.
Now, let's move on to adventure. How important is it to have adventures in our lives?
Well, having an adventure in our lives is so important because it not only get you out of your comfort zone, you get to know yourself. You get to discover yourself in a different aspect from what you have already empowered, and you got to explore your potentials to a certain extent that you may actually acquire new skills. And also, the most important thing about having adventure is to be exciting about your life instead of like working like a robot every day, and be really a human.
Do you think people in your country are adventurous?
Well, I'll say the people in my country are not quite adventurous. They tend to be more conservative and careful about their moves, because what they really hope for is a house, a car, a family. That's all they want. They don't want any surprises. And even the word surprise is sometimes negative in Chinese. So I would say they don't like adventures.
What do people learn about themselves from having adventures?
Well, personally, I learned from adventures that I find out that I have certain skills. Like when I got lost in Taiwan, I find out that some people do not trust other people easily, but when the house owner received me, I have a complete faith in him. So I find out that I can be confident with someone I don't know. I can be confident with total strangers. So this is my kind of power after having adventures.
Thank you. That's the end of the speaking